Even for many of us adults, noticing, understanding, and naming thoughts and feelings when they are talking to you is not easy to do all the time. And helping kids learn how to notice their thoughts and feelings, a really useful skill, can be particularly difficult, even when you have whatever this thing is. Hi out there. This is Dr. Pearce, child psychologist. And today I have with me my friend or friends, I don't know really what they are. They're these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle dragon things. I mean, they're like if Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Puff the Magic Dragon had a glove baby or something. It's a really cute thing I found at a garage sale last summer. And today I'm here to talk with you about how to help kids track and notice their own thoughts and feelings. It's an important but kind of cryptic subject that is understandably difficult to help kids learn to understand. So the first thing that we have to do when we're trying to help kids notice their thoughts and feelings is to get them used to the idea that they have thoughts and feelings. And being able to model that for them is helpful. Being able to speak out loud about your own thoughts and feelings in those terms can be pretty helpful. But it introduces one really remarkable thing, which is the idea that you have a mind and that you can notice your mind and you can think about your mind and you can watch your mind. Remarkable, isn't it? So when I'm helping kids start to understand how to think about thoughts and feelings, how to notice them, I do very often use puppets and things like this. And the reason that I'm particularly a fan of this multi-headed hydra of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles dragon thing is because of the multiple heads, because it can really introduce the idea that there are lots of thoughts and feelings that we can have and that we can listen to all of them, and we can learn to understand that sometimes when we're struggling with things, we have a tendency to do this. We only look and listen to one kind of line of thought and feeling. For example, feeling really angry and feeling like we have to get back at someone. We only listen to that and say, they made us do it, that's why I had to do it. When the truth is, we have all kinds of other things going on. Maybe one was saying, well, that's true, and it wouldn't be a good idea to, hit them back and so forth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So there's some kind of phrasing and word methods that you can use in order to help kids. So one example is, oh man, wow, that's interesting that your brain tells that to you when you have a kid who's thinking something. One real common example is if you have a kid who's struggling with a lot of sadness and tends to say a lot of self-critical things, tends to say a lot of big negativistic things like, oh, the world just stinks and nothing will ever work out. It can be a good idea to avoid arguing with the kid and yet at the same time to try to introduce the idea. I'm gesturing with the glove, that looks a little creepy, but introduce the idea that the kiddo is having a thought and that thoughts are not necessarily inherent truth. They are indeed just thoughts. And so the phrase that I sometimes use is, oh, your brain tells you that. And maybe I'll say something validating like, oh man, I bet you feel really sad when your brain tells that to you. And that's a really big one, is to phrase it in those terms, because a lot of kids seem to be able to get that idea pretty well. It takes some practice. Some kids are better at it than others, just like any other kind of skill. But the point is we start to use that kind of language, and we can also model out loud. Sometimes if we're struggling with something, like say you're going with your kid to the store because you're really excited to get some chocolate ice cream, but you get to the store and for some reason they're totally out of chocolate ice cream. In that case, it can be perfectly reasonable for you to kind of model what's going on for you. Like, well, oh man, there's this kind of, my brain is telling me, oh, this really stinks and I just want to go yell and scream at the manager of the store, why are you out of chocolate ice cream? But there's this other thought in my head that says, yeah, well, but sometimes things run out and it's not that big of a deal. So what I think we'll do is decide if we want a different kind of ice cream or if we want a different kind of treat today. The point is, we help to introduce the idea to kids that they can notice their thoughts and feelings, that they can look around for more useful thoughts and feelings, or at least more useful thoughts if they're struggling, and that their thoughts and feelings, particularly their thoughts, are not just sort of inherent truth, which is sometimes easy to kind of forget about even for us adults. So at any rate, you might be asking why? Why should we worry about helping kids notice their thoughts and feelings? Isn't that just kind of this hokey, abstract thing? Well, I mean, it can feel kind of cryptic and a little abstract, I suppose. But what this does is huge. It helps kids learn how to, instead of kind of have their thoughts and feelings just kind of being something they don't quite see, that just sort of lead them around, they're able to start to do this, which is to say they can start to look at them and go, oh, wow, look at all these things that I think and feel. And sometimes it can be surprising at how many different things there are. And it can be surprising how clear it is that you are the one who makes the decision. And these critters here simply talk to you, as it were. And then you can even realize that they talk to you probably because you're telling them to, because where do these things come from? They certainly, some people think that they're random, but I don't think so. At any rate, that's a subject for a whole other video. But it can really help kids who are struggling with behavioral and emotional difficulties to learn how to track their own thoughts and feelings. And in fact, with some kids, not all, but with some kids in my history of working with kids as a child psychologist, this thing right here, which is to say, hey, let's start noticing your thoughts and feelings and start to play with them. Do we want to go with that? Do we agree with this? Do we not agree with it? Do we want to look for more interesting thoughts and feelings or something like that, less destructive thoughts and feelings? That idea alone has catalyzed a tremendous amount of progress. So these are just a few simple ideas for how to help kids learn how to notice their thoughts and feelings. The biggest two, I would say, are one, modeling it for them, particularly in situations where there might be some negative feelings, because that's usually where we struggle the most with this. And number two is thinking of phrasing when you notice that your kid really seems to have a conviction that a thought that they're experiencing is just this sort of truth, like, oh, I got a bad grade on my test, therefore I'm stupid and I'll never be able to be good at anything. Because the temptation can be to sort of argue with the kid or to reassure the kid. And those things are not wrong per se. It can also be very good to kind of gently validate, but with an expression that indicates that this is a thought that they are having. And the phrase that I like is, wow, you must feel really sad when your brain tells that to you. And the implications there are very big. So at any rate, this is Dr. Brett Pearce. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you've been enjoying my content and have not yet subscribed, please consider doing so. You can press a button down there to subscribe. There's also a bell notification thing that you can smash in order to be notified when my next video goes live. Until then, wishing you a safe and productive new decade, I guess, 2020. Wow, it's finally here. Take care.